Okay, here we go. William Steig, Dr. Desoto. Okay, this was a book I got for my granddaughter, Alexia, one of my granddaughters, and it was back in 2014. That's a picture that I think I drew, and that's Alexia's signature, which she used capital letters back in those days. Dr. Desoto, William Steig. Okay. Dr. Desoto, the dentist, did very good work, so he had no end of patients. Those close to his own size, moles, chipmunks, etc., sat in the regular dentist's chair. Larger animals sat on the floor, while Dr. Desoto stood on a ladder, like in this picture right here. Well, for extra large animals, he had a special room. Dr. Desoto was hoisted up to the patient's mouth. There's Dr. Desoto right there, by his assistant, who also happened to be his wife. Okay? Well, Dr. Desoto was especially popular with the big animals. He was able to work inside their mouths, wearing rubbers to keep his feet dry, and his fingers were so delicate, and his drill so dainty, they could hardly feel any pain. Being a mouse, he refused to treat animals dangerous to mice, and it had said so on his sign. Cats and other dangerous animals not accepted for treatment. Well, when the doorbell rang, he and his wife would look out the window. They wouldn't admit even the most timid-looking cat. Well, one day, when they looked out, they saw a well-dressed fox with a flannel bandage around his jaw. I cannot treat you, sir, Dr. Desoto shouted. Sir, haven't you read my sign? Oh, please, the fox wailed. Please, have mercy. I'm suffering. And he wept so bitterly it was pitiful to see. Well, just a moment, said Dr. Desoto. Oh, that poor fox, he whispered to his wife. What shall we do? Let's risk it, said Mrs. Desoto, and she pressed the buzzer and let the fox in. He was upstairs in a flash. Oh, bless your little hearts, he cried, falling to his knees. I beg you, do something. My tooth is killing me. Well, yeah, sit on the floor, sir, said Dr. Desoto, and remove that bandage, please. Well, Dr. Desoto climbed up the ladder and bravely entered the fox's mouth. Ooh, oh, wow, he gasped. The fox had a rotten bicuspid and unusually bad breath. Well, this tooth will have to come out, Dr. Desoto announced. But we can make you a new one. Oh, just stop the pain, whimpered the fox, wiping some tears away. Well, despite his misery, he realized he had a tasty little morsel in his mouth, and his jaw began to quiver. Keep open, yelled Dr. Desoto. Wide open, yelled his wife. Well, I'm giving you gas now, said Dr. Desoto. You won't feel a thing when I yank the tooth out. Well, soon the fox was in dreamland. Oh, yummy, yummy, he mumbled. Oh, how I love them raw with just a pinch of salt and a dry white wine. Well, they could guess what he was dreaming about, and Mrs. Desoto handed her husband a pole to keep the fox's mouth open. Dr. Desoto fastened his extractor to the bad tooth, and then he and his wife began turning the winch, and finally, with a sucking sound, the tooth popped out and hung swaying in the air. Oh, I'm bleeding, the fox yelped when he came to. Dr. Desoto ran up the ladder and stuffed some gauze in the hole. Now, the worst is over, he said. I'll have your new tooth ready tomorrow. Be here at 11 sharp. Well, the fox, still woozy, said goodbye and left. On his way home, he wondered if it would be shabby of him to eat the Desotos when the job was done. Well, after office hours, Mrs. Desoto molded a tooth of pure gold and polished it. Raw with salt indeed, murmured Dr. Desoto. How foolish to trust a fox. Well, he didn't know what he was saying, said Mrs. Desoto. Why should he harm us? We're helping him. Because he's a fox, said Dr. Desoto. They're wicked creatures. Well, that night, the Desotos lay awake worrying. Should we let him in tomorrow? Mrs. Desoto wondered. Well, once I start a job, said the dentist firmly, I finish it. My father was the same way. But we must do something to protect ourselves, said his wife. Well, they talked and they talked until they formed a plan. I think it will work, said Dr. Desoto. A minute later, he was snoring. Squeak. The next morning, promptly at 11, a very cheerful fox turned up. He was feeling not a particle of pain. And when Dr. Desoto got into his mouth, he snapped it shut for just a moment. And then he opened it wide and laughed. Oh, I am just a joke, he chortled. Well, be serious, said the dentist sharply. We have work to do. His wife was lugging the heavy tooth up the ladder. Oh, I love it, exclaimed the fox. It's just beautiful. Dr. Desoto set the gold tooth in its socket and hooked it up to the teeth on both sides. Well, the fox caressed the new tooth with his tongue. My, it feels good, he thought. I really shouldn't eat them. On the other hand, how can I resist? We're not finished, said Dr. Desoto, holding up a large jug. I have here a remarkable preparation developed only recently by my wife and me. And with just one application, you can be rid of toothaches forever. How would you like to be the first one to receive this unique treatment? Oh, well, I certainly would, the fox declared. I'd be honored. He hated any kind of personal pain. Well, you will never have to see us again, said Dr. Desoto. Well, no one will see you again, said the fox to himself. He had definitely made up his mind to eat them with the help of his brand new tooth. Dr. Desoto stepped into the fox's mouth with a bucket of secret formula, and he proceeded to paint each tooth. He hummed as he worked. Oh, oh, oh. Mrs. Desoto stood by on the ladder, pointing out spots that he had missed. Oh, right there. The fox looked very happy. When the dentist was done, he stepped down. Now, close your jaws tight, he said, and keep them closed for a full minute. Well, the fox did as he was told. And then he tried to open his mouth, but his teeth, they were stuck together. Oh, excuse me. I should have mentioned, said Dr. Desoto. You won't be able to open your mouth for a day or two. The secret formula must first permeate the dentine. But don't worry, he said. No pain ever again. Well, the fox was stunned. He stared at Dr. Desoto and then at his wife, and they smiled and they waited, and all he could do was say, "Thank you very much," through his clenched teeth, and get up and leave. And he tried to do so with dignity. And then he stumbled down the stairs in a daze. Dr. Desoto and his assistant had outfoxed the fox, and they kissed each other and took the rest of the day off. Well, Dr. Desoto and his wife treat the toothaches of animals large and small. His expertise is so great that his fortunate patients never feel any pain. And since he's a mouse, Dr. Desoto refuses to treat animals who have a taste for mice. But one day, the fox shows up and begs for relief from the tooth that's killing him. How can the kind-hearted Desotos turn him away? But how can they make sure that the fox doesn't eat them once his tooth is fixed? Those clever Desotos will find a way. Well, there's some comments there for people that really reviews the Dallas Morning Zoos. I cannot imagine childhood without Steig. Dr. Desoto is filled with great fun and read again delight. And that's true. You want to read this again several times if you can, or listen to me read it. And then the Philadelphia Inquirer. This is one of those picture books that are so good, I'd just like to quote the whole thing. And then the Los Angeles, a marvelously satisfying story, guaranteed to please. Yes, and that is the story of Dr. Desoto. I think there was a sequel to this book, something about the jungle, I believe. Now, over on the other page, is a little piece of paper. You might want to try this one, if you think about it. It's called a book review, okay? And you write down the title, which is Dr. Desoto, and then you write down the author's name, William Steig, and then it says summary. So you could write your own review. I like this story because, and then you'd write down the reasons why you like this story. Maybe you might even want to draw a picture. You don't have to make it like this, the same one up there. Use your own imagination. Get the fox in there. And then you say, my rating out of 10 is 10 plus. Okay? And that, thanks for listening. That is the end. See you next time.